We are recording. So there you go. Thank you, Crystal. And just one quick second, it should. I'm using a different system here. Hopefully you will see my screen. So hopefully you see my PowerPoint now, and let me know if it's not showing. Can you see that, Crystal?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you so much. I know that a lot of times I talk about technology, and I'm going to share some technology tools with you today, so don't panic. But I really want to share with you something that's had a huge impact on my career as a real estate professional and as a just an individual over the last couple of years, and that's using the Notes app. That's right. It's a free app on your phone to double your income. And I want you to know what I'm going to share with you today. I know some of you, and I want you to just sit back and relax and take good notes, because I'm 60 years old this year. And I tell my wife all the time, I say, I wish someone had really put this into me years ago when I was a child. I mean, I've been raised in church my whole life, and I love to go to church, and I love the Bible, but there are a lot of things hidden in the Bible that I don't think a lot of people have ever shared with me as I was growing up. So I may take you on a little preaching, but I promise not to get too, just sit back and relax and enjoy. I put my Hawaiian shirt on for you, by the way. There is snow on the other side of my wall here, but I'm always grateful and appreciative to be able to come to Hawaii and speak, and this time in a virtual environment. So I want to thank you for that opportunity, and thanks to our sponsors and Joan and Crystal. I appreciate that so much. Well, a lot of you probably remember that it was April the 7th, 2007, when I wanted to quit. I mean, I really did. Some of you've heard my story. My wife and I owned a pick your own blueberry blackberry farm. We had this beautiful home we built. We owned 80 acres. We had about 20 acres in blueberries and 30 acres in blackberries, and people would come from all over to pick blueberries and blackberries. And unfortunately, some dramatic events happened back on April the 7th, 2007 in my life. And I was forced to not only, sell my real estate office, which I'd sold, but I had lost my job, and we had some other problems that went on. And literally my wife and I had to regroup. We lost our crop on April 7th, 2007, and we began the slow process of trying to figure out how are we going to get out of this mess. And we started by just selling most everything we had. I remember one Sunday night, it was about 5 o'clock in the evening, and some people had come down to the farm, and I took them down to this big barn we had, and I had all this stuff. It was my stuff, my wife and I, our stuff. And I remember they bought all of this stuff from us. And I remember looking out, the sun was setting, and I just broke down and cried, because I felt like everything was falling apart. I felt like the world was crashing in on me. And I had to tell myself at that point, John, it's just stuff. You can always replace stuff, but that doesn't relieve all of the financial burdens I had. And my wife and I did not want to file bankruptcy. And we had everybody under the sun telling us, just file bankruptcy, everything would be fine. And it was just a course we just chose not to go down. And there are a lot of people, I understand there are a lot of people that have to file bankruptcy. There are medical situations, there are things that are outside your norm, but I was just in one of these positions where I didn't want to go down that road. So I didn't know what to do. It was a very traumatic time in our life, and I felt like I was defeated. I felt like a boxer who had lost, and I felt like I was really going the wrong way in my life. And I had all of this junk that was coming in and pouring in on my life. And I just remembered reminding myself that if you change nothing, nothing will change. But I knew that I could have success. I knew that was not out of the picture. I just knew it was going to be a long road, and I knew there would be some failure and heartache. And if I persevered, at the end of the road, I could have some success. So I told myself, because I ran an office, 3 offices, 40 agents, and I used to tell my agents all the time, if you continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, and you expect different results, you'll go crazy. In fact, I believe that is the Chinese definition for insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over, and you expect different results. So I knew I had to come up with some new stuff, and I had to do some new things. And I want you to write this word down, ACT, A-C-T, because attitude changes things. It changes everything. Now, I tell you that because I had a "I can't do it" attitude. That was literally what was going on in my life. And not only did I have an "I can't" attitude, I just had a lot of wrong thinking going on. So where do we start? Where did I have to start? Where do you start today? If you really want to double your income, if you want to change what you're doing in your real estate career, whether it's your office or it's your personal life, you got to start somewhere. And the first thing you have to start with, I believe, is this right here. Your subconscious mind is a powerful force. And I love this quote here because it basically says 95% of your brain power handles everything throughout your body, from eating, breathing, digesting, making memories. It's a big deal. And the subconscious mind is far more than the conscious mind. And there are lots of things that are pulled back to the subconscious mind. And I knew that's where I had to start. I had to start with my mind. I remember my dad growing up as a young boy used to love to listen to Zig Ziglar. And I would be in the car with my dad and we would listen to Zig Ziglar tapes, and my mom, Tom Peters, and some of these, the other guy I'm trying to think of now who was a real estate speaker, but his name was I can't remember, but I just grew up listening to a lot of motivational things. And I knew back in 2007, 2008, when I was trying to get myself turned around, it was going to require me to put the right stuff into my head. And I began that process back at that point, listening to motivational CDs, pulling out some of those old Zig Ziglar CDs, and really starting to recreate a different attitude. You know, what I want to ask you is this: how do you see your bucket right now, or your basket? Do you see it empty? That's how I saw my basket back in 2008. Like, I was really going through some negative stuff. Or do you see your basket full? And I want you to just change the way you're looking at your life and your mind. And I want you to see more powerful things. I mean, our mind is kind of like a tug and war. We have all this bad stuff wanting to say, you can't do this, you can't do that, but we're trying to tell ourselves we can. And, unfortunately, even from the time we're little children, if we lose, it gets ingrained in our mind and we begin to think, oh gosh, I can't do that. I could never do that. And so I started this long process of change. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, is how do we change? And, our attitude changes things, action changes things. And I want you to remember that ACT, because you've got to, whether it's your action or your attitude, you've got to be willing to change some things. So the first thing I want to talk about this morning, and I'm going to tie all of this back and how it helped me to literally be able to double my income year after year. And I've done that consecutively now since 2016 or 17. And that's when things really started to kick in for me. So the first thing is goals. We've got to have goals, and you've got to write your 2021 goals down. And if you don't have your goals written down, you need to do that. Goals are so important. You know, Stanford University did a study a number of years ago, and they said 85% of people who write their goals down and look at those goals on a daily basis will achieve those goals. So write your goals down and look at them every day. I'm listening to this fascinating audiobook, and I share the cover with you in just a little bit. It's called um, It Works. And it's like a 15-minute audiobook. And I'm telling you what, I love that book. I've listened to it now. I just downloaded it the other day, but I've probably listened to it 4 or 5 times. But what he talks about in that book is write down your goals, look at them every day, and think about them throughout the day. And that's one of the things that we have to start doing is we have to have our goals, and we have to work in a plan, and we have to work in an action. I love that story about the frog that's on the creek, and the creek's 3 foot. And so how far should the frog jump? Well, you know what? You probably ought to jump 4 feet, right? Make sure you make it. My friend Darren Kittleson, who's been to Hawaii, and I know you all love Darren, and Darren's helped me a lot with really a lot of this thinking and moving my life to a different area. But Darren always says if your goals aren't high enough that people are laughing at your goals, then you probably haven't set them too high. And I love that. So, set some goals. Here, I use this 30 rule, and it basically says for every 5 transactions, for every 30 people you meet, 10 of those will be warm and 1 will buy. So if you need to do 5 transactions a month, multiply that times 30, it's 1,500 contacts that you need to make throughout the year. But you can see now in just a 10-month period, you could literally do a lot of transactions there. And so when you break that down, you actually get down to where it's just 6 contacts per day. So if you use the frog principle, why not just make 10 contacts a day? But you have to start with goals. Now, here's the Notes app. And the Notes app on your phone has the ability for you to make lists. And so I write my goals down and I have them on my Notes app. The really cool thing about that is the fact that I can look at my goals every day. I can look at them before I go to bed. I can look at them when I get up in the morning. And it's all about writing down and thinking and looking about your goals. Goals are so important for us. And there's a couple of other interesting apps that are out there. One is called Streaks. You can keep streaks as far as your goals, and one is called Productive. I actually have that on my little iPhone watch, which is upstairs. I took off for the presentation, but I can keep track of things I'm doing, and Productive helps me become a little bit better with achieving my goals. And there's also an app called Goals on Track. But have some goals. And how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. In 2016, my wife was telling me, she said, you need to put your real estate school online. And I said, honey, I taught real estate school for years and years and years. I don't know if I want to teach real estate school anymore. And she said, John, I'm telling you, you need to get your real estate school online. Well, I'd done some teaching and creating some courses for Jenny at the REBI, and they really liked what I'd done with some of my online material. And I was sending people to another online real estate school, and nobody would ever finish the school. Well, I'd sent a friend of mine, Henry, to an online real estate school. I thought if anybody could finish the school, Henry could. So I told Henry about the school. He signed up, he started. I ran into Henry a couple months later, and I saw him at the grocery store, and I said, Henry, how's your school going? And he goes, oh, John, I had to quit. He said it was awful. And I said, well, what was wrong? And he said, I just was sitting there reading, clicking my mouse all the time, and I just couldn't take it. Well, when I left the grocery store, I kid you not, I sat in my car and I said, John Mayfield, I looked in the rearview mirror and I said, John Mayfield, you're going to put your real estate school online. Because my wife had been on to me a lot. That was a huge undertaking. And at first, I'll be honest with you, I almost said, you know what? I don't know if I want to go down that road. That's too much work. It's too big of a commitment. But I broke it down into smaller bite-sized chunks. And do you know that by January 2017, my online real estate school was approved in Missouri, and it has gone gangbusters. We're now approved in Oklahoma, Indiana, South Dakota, Kansas, Florida, Virginia, and yes, I'm happy to announce I just was approved in Hawaii, believe it or not, for the 1st of January. So I'm actually, that's been one of my goals, was to bring my online real estate course to Hawaii. So I've been able to learn your laws and learn a lot about the requirements that you have. But you know what? I had to have a goal, and I had to write that goal down, and I had to remind myself that I could achieve that goal. So I want you to set some goals down. Now, my daughter and I recently purchased this Remarkable, and I don't know how many of you have seen the Remarkable, but it is a remarkable tool. In fact, my daughter's here in my office with me. She's taking some notes, and she's taking notes on a Remarkable right now. But this, what I love about Remarkable, and for you in Hawaii, it would be perfect. It's it does connect and sync with your Dropbox, but it has no email functions on there, no social media, so you can really get clear-headed and write goals down and come up with a vision. I used it the other day to in a listing presentation where I drew out and basically gave my rationale for a price, and it worked wonderfully. So it's called Remarkable, and it's a really cool tool. Now, the other item I want to tell you about goals, and if you take nothing else, well, I want you to take a lot of stuff away and apply it in your lives. But this is a tech tool. I'm telling you what, it has changed my daughter and son-in-law, who both work with me at the real estate school. It's changed the whole way we do business. And it's perfect for teams, for offices, for anyone. And it's called ClickUp. If you haven't seen this, there's a free edition, but it's really, when they say one place for all your work, it is amazing. And they have some real estate templates that are just super to use. What's great about ClickUp, and here's a screenshot of what we're working on. These are all the states and different courses we're working on. So literally, I can go into ClickUp and we can assign a task, and we can put a due date, and we can put a person who's in charge for that task and give them a date that it's due. And then we can all monitor this in the dashboard wherever we are. And there is an app for your phone. And then what Dan and Alex and I do is, like today, we had our team meeting and we went through ClickUp just to clean up any loose ends, to extend anything that needs to be extended. And you know, today we had 2 or 3 things that needed to be moved up to a higher priority. So every day it keeps our team in focus. But you can have this as an individual. You can have private boards. I have a private board just for my goals and the things that I'm working on. I'm working on a new book. And so I have due dates. I break everything down into smaller chunks and assign the priority level, and it reminds me and keeps me on track. So check it out. It's called ClickUp, and it's probably one of the neatest new tech tools that I've been using in a long, long time, and you'll just absolutely love it. Now, have your goals, okay? That's the first thing you have to do. The second thing that I always tell my real estate agents, and I tell my team, and I remind myself, is this: you've got to remember Sir Isaac Newton's law of motion. And basically, Sir Isaac Newton's law of motion, and I'm just going to kind of go through these and give you a speeded up version and show you this specific slide is that anything that has emotion going into something, there is an equal or greater reaction on the other end. Now, think about that in real estate. If you're not knocking on doors, if you're not prospecting, if you are not sending out expired listings, let me tell you what, there's no effort going in. There's going to be little effort or financial benefits on the other side. When you put work into what you're doing, you're going to get the results. I've seen it for 42 years as a real estate professional. If I go out and knock on doors, if I send letters out, if I make the phone calls, if I'm doing the things I need to do, I am going to make money. It's just guaranteed. It always works that way. Now, I can't explain this except just to say, if you put the effort in, you're going to get the results. With my real estate school, I do a lot of live streaming. So my students can log into the YouTube channel and I actually get to teach get to teach the topic to them. It's amazing how many times I put my phone on silent. I'm live streaming on YouTube. I'm putting a lot of effort and energy into my students. And when I finish the live stream, I'll look at my phone and there'll be one or two people who bought classes. And I'm always reminded of myself, it's the law of motion. It's because I'm working hard. And I'm just telling you, if you do that, you will have success. It will be beneficial. But you've got to put the work in and you've got to have a game plan for that.
Hey,
So,
John, excuse me,
yes,
John. Your slides are not changing. I mean, I see it changing, but the audience doesn't seem to be seeing it changed.
they do not.
Yeah, it says,
There is, let
okay,
me,
okay, now they're saying it's changing now. Okay, I think we're okay.
okay.
Okay, they
Yeah,
see the light bulb. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure everybody was in
yeah,
track
and
with
that
yours.
could be an internet issue on their end if they're perhaps, but you can see it now?
Yeah, it looks like
Okay.
everybody's good. Thank you.
All right, good. Sorry about that. Um, so, um, so, you know, the other item I wanted to mention to you is staying laser focused. And I go back to Napoleon here. These are things we've all heard about, and they're just, I want you to understand if you can go back with me where I was, I had to basically start over. And a lot of that was with setting goals. A lot of that was with working hard. And a lot of that was just knowing I had to be laser focused on specific tasks and specific items. And that's what I think goals in your list and your notes app can help you do. It can help you stay focused. Gary Keller wrote a really interesting book called The One Thing, and he even had a journal that I purchased. But use your Remarkable or use your Notes app and really ask yourself, what is the one thing that's the most priority that I need to accomplish and that I need uh, to accomplish and do. Now, a couple of apps I just showed you, the Freedom, which was the previous app, and Rescue Time are really good ways to block out a lot of noise. A lot of times where I get my most work done is I'm staying off social media, I'm staying off my computer, I'm trying not to watch a lot of TV, but I'm staying laser focused and I'm using that to be able to move myself forward. So, be consistent with following some of these plans, and I think that they will help you. Now, prospecting, we're all in real estate. You've got to prospect. Do you know that about 70 to 77% of your business will come from your sphere of influence? Referrals, past clients, customers. So I really want you to think about, how can I stay consistent following up with my prospects? You've got to develop a strategy. And when I talk about being laser focused, that's where you really need to be laser focused at. how can you make more contacts and connections with your sphere of influence? I'm telling you what, every time I send a mail out to my sphere of influence, there's a huge return off of that. I try to block out just enough time every day to send 2 to 3 note cards per day or to call people. And I get it. Sometimes it's a little challenging when you have to pick up the phone and call someone. But when I make those calls, I feel so much better after I've made the call. And sometimes, and I've got to tell you 2 stories recently. One was her name was Hilda, and I had sold her a home, and the other name was Carol, who used to work for me and years ago. And I remember I thought I need to call Carol. I hadn't called her for a long time, and I'm going to tell you what, when I picked the phone up, I said to myself, "Oh man, I hate cold calling like this." I do. I mean, I've done this my whole life. And I called Carol. And she said to me, "Oh, John, I'm so glad you called. I really needed to talk to somebody right now." And my heart kind of sunk for a minute. And Carol began to share some things with me during that phone conversation about her husband, and she had to put him in a nursing home. And she said, "I've just been sitting here so discouraged and so down." And I thought, John Mayfield, what if you hadn't picked that phone up and made that call to Carol? 4 weeks later, Carol called me, and I just called to visit to see how she was doing. 4 weeks later, Carol calls me and says, "I want to sell my condo. I can't live here anymore now that Ron's in the nursing home." And she listed her condo with me. Now, I didn't, I guess indirectly I was calling Carol so that if she was thinking about buying or selling to remember me, but I really just wanted to call her because I knew it was on my notes app list to make 2 calls. So think about, how can you prospect? How can you make calls? Can you send cards? And I'm telling you, when you put that in your notes app in a bullet list, it gives you a strategy. It will help you win business. And think about 30, 10, 1. For every 30 contacts you call, 10 will be warm, 1 will be a hot contact, and you'll do lots of business. The other thing you have to do is that you have to be different. I always like to tell my agents, a lot of it's about perception and being different and just being out there and making calls and even getting active. I don't do a lot of my social media anymore. I'm hiring that out, but I know I have to have a presence on social media because that presence gives that illusion that I'm really out there. And people are, let's face it, social media is here. People are using social media, and perception can really be a reality, as Malcolm Gladwell talks about in the tipping point, the law of FAE, fundamental attribution error. Perception is reality. Well, here's what I want us to really talk a little bit about. I'm just, again, I want to share with you some things that have changed my life dramatically and have helped me overcome a lot of issues in my life. But one of them is vision. You have to make your vision so clear that your fears become irrelevant. I want to be very honest with you right now. Most of my life, except for the last 3 years, I've lived in fear. I really have. Fear about, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to keep my real estate office afloat? Fear about, what happens if I don't make it? I really have. I'm just being as honest with you as I can. And when I started really putting more of these positive affirmations, when I started using my phone and the notes app to write goals down, to say affirmations, which we're going to talk about in a minute, to create a vision board, the fear started to leave. And I can stand here in front of you now and tell you, for the last 3 years, I haven't had any fear in my life. I don't worry anymore about, because I know a lot of that's in my control and I don't have to put it in someone else's control. So I want you to think about vision and what are you, what is your vision? Look at this right here. And hopefully, Crystal, I'm going back and forth that they're still able to see the slides. But this from Forbes, and I know it's a little tough to read, but 76% of people who said they started a business said that today they're where they are because they envisioned that it would be there. 82% of small business owners used a vision board to have accomplished more than half the goals they wanted. I'm telling you what, if you do not use a vision board and you don't have a vision, it works. Visualization is one of the most popular and effective mind workouts you can do. And I started doing this, and I'm telling you what, some amazing things have happened in my life. And you can create your vision board however you want, but you know what? You have to have a vision board to look at things and be positive about those. So, yes, I'm using the Notes app on my phone to not only have my positive affirmations that I read, but you can see here that I actually have some of my visions, some of the things I want. So here I am, I'm on my vision board, and this is the Notes app. Again, this is a free app. And did you know you can go up and you can actually insert pictures right into your Notes app? So just create, you can create goals lists. I have my affirmations. I have a list of people I pray for in my Notes app. There's all these apps you can pay for, and this is free. But if there's some place you want to go on a vacation, or if there's a place you want to own an apartment, like I do in the south of France, in Nice, and some of you know I spent some time there as a real estate agent. Well, guess what? Create a vision board in your Notes app. And once you create it on your Notes app, guess what? It's now right there on your phone. And so I can pull my phone out and I can look at those visions every day. You can do this in Evernote as well if you want that. And yes, there are even apps that you can do. And I've even gotten as creative as putting things on my iPhone watch. I just put the picture there. And you know what? When I look at my watch, it's reminding me. So have a vision board and look at it every day. It's so important and it's so big for moving you forward and doubling your income and really just creating a better life in general. Now, the other thing I want to mention to you is about what we're saying and what we're listening to. It's so important. Words can make a huge difference. Either we're putting positive things into our life or we're putting negative things into our life. I have somebody who's very, very close to me, and, and I love them dearly. But unfortunately, a lot of times, every time when I say something, they always have a negative spin on it. And it's always a real, I could say, the sun's out today, isn't it pretty? And they would say, but yeah, it's supposed to rain tomorrow. That's okay to a degree. But you know what? We've got to get rid of having negative thinking. So one of the ways that I've accomplished this is through affirmations. And I will be very upfront with you. I always used to think this was the goofiest thing in the world to have an affirmation and read it every day. Today, I don't think that. These are some affirmations that I say every day when I get up. Money's forever circulating freely in my life, and there's always a divine surplus. Every day in every way, I'm growing more and more financially prosperous now. I give thanks. Gratitude and thanks is important for a quick and substantial increase. And I have a large, steady, dependable, permanent financial increase now. One of the affirmations that I say every morning now is this: the economy, the coronavirus, I don't care who's in office. None of that is going to affect my real estate office and my real estate school because I don't have to be in fear about worrying about what's going to happen. I want to speak positive words, and I want those positive words to help me get through all of that. So think about, how can you have some positive words? Now, I've created mine right on my notes app. And I'm telling you what, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I pray for a lot of different people. That's number one. Number two is I go through my affirmations. And the third thing I do is I go through my vision board. That has changed my life. Words have power. Some of the people I've talked to say that they go outside and they say their words, aloud. I could go back to the Bible and take you back to Genesis, and it was God's words. He spoke the words, and that is what the Bible says. But even as you look through the life of so many famous people, the words we say have so much power. So we need to think positive words, and we need to use those words. Again, I don't want to preach too hard at you, but I don't want people to think I'm way over on some weird corner of the earth, because I can take you back and show you that even from the Bible, by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. And even in Isaiah in the Old Testament, we hear about the power of words. So we've got to remind ourselves that putting the positive words and putting positive information can have such a big impact. I wanted to quit April 7th, and I want you to know, every word I was putting into my mind was this: "You'll never be able to get out of this, John. No one's going to help you. You're in trouble, and it's going to be tough for you to get out of that situation." But I knew I couldn't stay there, and I knew I had to think a little bit differently. And I kept trying and trying. And as I continued to move forward, and I was speaking one day in California to a large group of people, I remember a man who came up to me afterwards, and he was so moved by my talk, and he said, "I want to bring you to France to speak." And I jokingly said, "Can I bring my wife?" And he said, "Yes, yes, bring your wife." I went to France to speak, and this man and I became friends. And I'd always heard a gentleman say, "We're only one person away from someone who can change our life." And this man literally changed my life. When I was unemployed, and the lowest point of my life with financial income, he brought me to France to work and put my wife and I up in this beautiful apartment overlooking the French Riviera. And one of the things I learned through that whole scenario was this. And I read this as I was looking out on the French Riviera from a book called Serendipity by Marcus Bach. "The goals you find on the way to the goal you want may be more precious than the goal you seek." And what that taught me was a lot about gratitude, practicing gratitude. Now, I don't need to tell you guys that, because it was not too long ago I was looking up some words. I told you I'm studying the Hawaii material and getting as familiar as I can. And I've heard you all say "Maloha" over and over. And I looked that up, and when I looked that up, it said "with the sincerest gratitude." And I thought, how cool is that? Because I hear that from my friends in Hawaii, and you really do practice gratitude. And I think that's so important. So another little app, the 5-minute journal, it's great. Every day I can write down what my goals are for the day, or what I'm grateful for. And at the end of the day, I can write down some of the key things that were winners for me. But being grateful is so important. And I think that, along with being grateful, we need to help other people. I love the law of reciprocity. And Michael, a friend of mine, Mike Mayer, actually shared this with me a while back. And Mike was just talking about, when we do something for someone else, they just have a deep rooted psychological urge to do something nice for us in return. And there's a great book out there by Dr. Adam Grant, and I listen to books a lot, so these are audio books, but Dr. Grant has a wonderful book that he talks about called Give and Take. And these are some other books that I've really had an impact on my life. Catherine Ponder, she has a great book called How to Live a Prosperous Life. This was probably written in 1959 or so, the 1950s. But you know, one of the things Catherine has reminded me about was sometimes we have to clean our closets out. Sometimes we have to get rid of the old in order to bring in the new. And sometimes, you know, we have to clean our desk. If there's unfinished business or something that has to be done, we have to take care of that. So, you know, get organized, clean out your closets, help other people. And you know what? Pray for other people. And again, I don't want to like be too uh, preaching to you, but I probably, Crystal will appreciate this. I probably read the book of Job. I used to hate to read Job because I thought something always bad's going to happen to me during the midst of it. But it's actually, I enjoy reading it now. And again, I have no fear anymore. But the interesting thing about Job, and I want you to look at this because I never noticed this till not too long ago. And the Lord made up to Job for all of his losses after he had made what? Prayer for his friends. And Job, and all Job had before was increased by twice as much. You know what? We need to keep people in mind. People tell me all the time, or I read on Facebook, will you pray for me? And you know, I'm being as transparent, as honest as I can. I would tell people, yeah, I'll keep you in my prayers. And then I didn't pray for them like I should have. Well, now when someone tells me that, I put their name in my notes app and I have a pretty long list, but I go through it every day. And, you know, I run into some of these people, and there are several people there who had cancer. One of my friends who had cancer, they gave him 2 months to live. Just last month, they told him he's cancer free and he's not going to have to go back. We need to remember to pray for people. And the other thing Catherine reminded me of in her book is we have to be willing to forgive. And, you know, I had a lot of people in my life that I probably was holding some grudges against. And when I got to that point where I could forgive, and Catherine says, hey, you don't have to go to them in person if you don't want to, just ask for forgiveness right where you're at. It really was a game changer for me. So there my wife and I were living the dream with a pick your own blueberry, blackberry farm. We'd built our home and we lost our crop. And then lo and behold, I wanted to quit. You know, I felt like every day it was storming and there was never going to be any sunshine. But I also knew I had to do a mind shift. And I knew by doing that mind shift that I could do that. So some of the things that helped me were audio books like Claude Bristol, TNT. And he also had another one called The Magic of Believing. And I love Joseph Murphy's How to Attract Money. I know it's a goofy title. That was probably one that helped me the most. And then I started noticing down below, if you like this book, you might like that one. And I found this book that was written back in the 1920s. And it's kind of, you know, different, but I love it, and I've learned so much from some of these people who've just helped me in so many ways. And all of these audio books, and I'll make this list and it will be available for you. And here's the book I just was telling you about. It's only 15 minutes. There's 45 minutes of conversation because they tell you about his life. But as he says, you know, just make a list, look at it, and think about it. Speak positive words. You know, to me, I had to have a new set of glasses because before it just looked like rain and clouds. But when I started reminding myself that, John Mayfield, you can do it. And I started listening to books and I started reading my affirmations every day. And I started taking 15 minutes to have a time of gratitude. Guess what? There was some hope for me. And my life started to change, and I could see light at the end of the tunnel. And through that, I want you to know I'm probably having the time of my life now. And it's not all about money. I don't want you to think that, although that has helped a lot to be able to pay my bills and to be able to live without fear. But it's all really boiled down to some of the key things I've told you today and using the Notes app on my telephone. So I just want to kind of recap a few things for you here. Number one, set your goals, be laser focused, and prospect. That's so important to prospect consistently. Have a vision, create a vision board on your Notes app and speak positive words. There are a ton of positive affirmations. Any of those audio books I've told you, they will give you affirmations to list. But you know what? You have to speak those and you have to speak it every day. You also need to practice gratitude. Be thankful. You know, another quick story. My wife and I just fixed a house up and we're trying to sell it. It's a home we've owned for a long, long time. We haven't really fixed a home up and sold it for years. And so we fixed this house up and I had 3 good showings. We lowered the price a little bit. And one lady thought she was going to write a contract. And I called her or I texted her and I said, "Hey, you think you might be writing a contract?" And she texted me back and said, "No, the buyers decided to go in another direction." And instead of I wanted to get discouraged, but I said, "That's okay." And I just had a time of gratitude that the house was shown, that we had a close contact. And, I was grateful, even though there was no deal. 10 minutes later, the phone rings. I answer it. A lady's asking me about the home I fixed up and said, "Can I go look at it tomorrow?" I showed her the house. She said, "I've been in love with it ever since I saw it on Zillow." We had just lowered the price. She wrote a contract on it. She's already approved for a loan. She's a loan processor. So she told me I'm going to make sure mine goes through really quick. But you know what? I look back at that and I'm telling myself, I didn't need to get discouraged that a deal fell through. I just had a time of gratitude and look what happened. So have a gratitude. Remember the law of reciprocity. Get organized. Clean out your closets. Pray for others. And then, pray and forgive. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much. I hope this has been helpful. I know I'm a tech guy and I love technology, but I want you to know what I've shared with you today has had such an amazing impact on my life. And I just feel the need to tell other people that, you know what? This can change for you too. Now, is it easy and is it going to like overnight? No, it took me a while. But by renewing my mind every day and looking at my affirmations and looking at my vision board and adding new things to my vision board and being grateful, I was able to just actually be able to surpass any of my wildest dreams and imaginations on where I'm going. And you know what? I've got a lot more I want to accomplish. So thank you so much. And I'll be glad to answer any questions if there are any, Crystal.
There are. Let me just reclaim the host. We have a few questions. They're technical questions. One says, I didn't realize I could save my notes in Gmail or iCloud. They were all saved in iCloud. Then Apple did an update and they were all lost. I worked with Apple for 5 hours, dumped my phone, reloaded twice, still couldn't retrieve them. Now I put everything into the iCloud option. Any ideas
Yeah.
on how to retrieve them?
Yeah, so they may actually be in the iCloud. So number one, I would see if, sometimes I've known people who have had 2 different email addresses and actually had 2 different iCloud accounts. So perhaps they're sitting in an iCloud, but under a different email address. I would check that first. But yeah, you definitely want to have those backed up. The other thing you might want to do is if you have an old phone or an old device, maybe see if you can open that up and see if they might be there. Other than that, my son-in-law's here in the background. He might have a solution, but if I do, I'll send you an email or they can email me and I'll see what I can find out because I love to research that type of information.
Okay, I do have another question. It says, I just heard that I can sync my notes with my MacBook Pro. How do I do that?
Yeah, so that you definitely can do that. You just have to go in and turn that on through the settings tab. And there is a way when you go into iCloud on settings on your phone or on your computer, there is a way when you go into that where you check the boxes of everything that you want to be synced with your iCloud. And that's where you would want to check that box to make sure the notes are synced.
Okay, and I have one last question. It's where is the notes on my Gmail?
So on Gmail, the Notes app that I use is the Notes app on your phone. Now you can use any kind of solution that you want. I just started using the Notes app because it's free, it's on my phone, and I can create to-do list, I can add pictures, and it syncs with everything, which is what I like. So if I'm on my tablet, I have my notes there that I can look at, or if I'm on my phone, or if I'm on my computer. But as far as the Gmail, I'm not aware of a notes app that's tied in with Gmail. You would probably just have to use something like Evernote or find an app where you can keep your goals or some of your things would work real well. Now, the ClickUp that I showed you, that works perfect, and you can actually add all of those there as well.
Okay. And well, I have one more question. Sorry.
Sure.
It says you shared several books to read and listen to. Which one would you recommend to start reading?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The very first book I read, and let me pull those up here, and I'm going to go back to the books. So we'll go through these here. This was the first book that I listened to. It just kind of intrigued me. It's only 50 minutes long. And by the way, I want you to know these books I've probably listened to some of these 20 and 25 times and I pick up things I didn't even, there's so much packed in there. This is probably from the 1940s or so. This book really helped me immensely, kind of beginning to think about positive thinking. And now I've always read like Think and Grow Rich and, some of those books, Earl Nightingale's books, but these were like hidden gems that have been around back then, but maybe did not get enough attention. So I read that book and I loved it so much that I bought his other book called The Magic of Believing. So those were the first two that I purchased. And then I bought this Joseph Murray book. I kind of put Murphy book, I put these in the order. And then this lady, which I know she's from like the 1920s, but she has some amazing stuff to remind us about. And probably the one I love the most is Catherine Ponder. She's still alive, actually. And she, she wrote this book back in the 1950s. I actually even found an audio recording where she gave this presentation in a room for a group of people. But I was going to say that I would recommend this book right here called It Works, which is just a quick little listen. And then maybe TNT, It Rocks the Earth, which was the first one. But I'll make sure that this PowerPoint gets shared as a PDF so you can all download it and look at it.
Mhm.
But that was the first one that kind of really started me. Crystal, the one thing that and that's why I shared my story at the beginning, because I had so much going on in my life and I was so defeated and so down. And it was when I really started listening to these types of books
Mm.
that I just started getting a different outlook on life. And I really started to dig my way out of being fearful all the time and
Mm.
saying that I was notorious for speaking words like that'll never happen for me, or I bet my transaction won't go through, or I bet this, or I was speaking all of these negative things, and I realized that I have to say, no, I'm not going to speak that. I'm going to speak positive and I'm going to declare positive things to happen. So I hope that answers the question. But I like this book to start with, or the It Works would be two good ones to start with.
Wonderful. I guess when your slides were lagging a little bit, someone asked if you could go back to the Click Up app.
Yes.
They missed that part of the presentation, and that'll
Yeah.
be our final question.
Okay. So let me just pull up you should still be able to see my screen, or yeah, you should
Yes,
be able to see
yes.
this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go to Click Up. I'm telling you, this is fairly new and not a lot of people are using this, but it has been huge for us. And you can see here that we're on, we have our Hawaii salesperson course. We have a few things we have to tighten down before we actually launch it for sale, but we're finishing up a few things with Florida. So you can see that we have things we're working on. This is our to-do in progress. These are things we haven't started, but you can also create your own board down here. And then everything, you can look at these in different ways. So if I want to look at it in a list view, I can do that, a board view. I mean, it is so powerful. And what's really cool is if I have a team and I want to set up a new task here, I can set up a new task and I could assign this then to my daughter, and I could give a description, and I could say, this is something I need for her to do in the Hawaii salesperson course. And, I'm just going to put test. And then over here, there's several other things we can do. I can add this, and then I can also upload a file if I want to right there. And then I can say, I need this done by tomorrow. And I can also then, load if we have a template, and then I can add tags and I could say this is urgent. And now I've created the task. Oh, I need to put that in. I don't have any list in so I'm going to put that right there. I think that will do it. Oh, I've got to type a name. So that's what I was doing wrong. So then I can say, I want to put this in the Hawaii list. So now I've created the task. Alex gets notified on her computer or her phone that I've just created a new task. It's urgent. I need it done by tomorrow. So really an amazing, it's changed the way we work at our real estate school. And we also use it with Slack. So right within Slack, we do all our messaging as a team and adding all of our notes. And I'd love to do a tech program on how we operate as a team, because we're getting very proficient with operating with Slack and ClickUp, and we use some other video tools. And but because we all work remotely most of the time, and so we can still get our work done even though we work remotely. We have a lady who works for us in the Philippines, and so she's a part of our group, and we can assign tasks and just get work done. But it's called ClickUp, and it's a great tool. I mean, you'll absolutely love it.
Hmm. Well, thank you, John, for
Well,
today's session.
you're
I
welcome.
think
Thank
that's going
you.
to be the end of our time today. And I want to thank our sponsors, Guaranteed Rate, Leonard Loventhal and Tim O'Leary. Thanks again. And I hope everybody got something out of this session. I will be sending out a follow-up email. It will include the slides as soon as John sends that to me. It will include the recording link, and it will include his contact information. I hope you all have a wonderful week and a wonderful weekend. Mahalo and aloha.
Mahalo. Bye.